Between the Colorado River and the town of Kingman, Arizona, there is an 8-mile stretch of road with 191 curves. Not 191 gentle bends, 191 documented curves, turns, and switchbacks, stacked one on top of another as the pavement claws its way over a range called the Black Mountains, on a strip of asphalt with no shoulders, almost no guardrails, and drop-offs that fall away into rock and creosote a few feet from the paint. Locals call this section the Sidewinder. For 26 years, from 1926 to 1952, it carried a different name. It was U.S. Route 66, the Mother Road, the Main Street of America, and every single vehicle traveling between Chicago and Los Angeles had to cross it. There was no way around. The truckers and the tow operators and the people who pulled bodies out of the canyons had their own name for it. They called it Bloody 66. Today it is bypassed, half-forgotten, patrolled by wild burros, and still open, and that is the road we are talking about. To understand why the most important highway in America was ever routed over the steepest, most dangerous grade on its entire 2,400-mile length, you have to understand that this road was never really built for travelers. It was built for gold. In the early 1900s, prospectors tore into the Black Mountains and found one of the richest gold districts in Arizona, centered on two camps, Gold Road and Oatman. In 1915, two prospectors hit a strike worth $10 million, and Oatman exploded into a boomtown of thousands, with hotels, saloons, and a stock exchange, all of it clinging to the western slope of a mountain range in the Mojave Desert. The town took its name from Olive Oatman, a girl who had been abducted from her family's wagon train in 1851 and returned 5 years later with a blue tattoo on her chin, a name that memorialized a tragedy before the town had produced any of its own. The wagon road that hauled ore out of those mines became the National Old Trails Road, and when federal planners drew the alignment of Route 66 in 1926, they simply adopted it, hairpins and all, because the road already existed and the mines already mattered. The railroad decades earlier had looked at these same mountains and swung wide around them to the south, through level ground near a place called Yucca. The railroad was right. The highwaymen chose the mountain anyway. This detail will matter later, so consider what the drive actually demanded. Eastbound from the river, the road ran flat past a mesa called Boundary Cone, then hit the foot of the range at 2,268 feet, and climbed to Sitgreaves Pass at 3,550 feet, named for Captain Lorenzo Sitgreaves, an Army surveyor who mapped this country in 1851. On the western side, the descent into Oatman dropped 915 feet in 4 winding miles. That was the steepest sustained grade anywhere on Route 66, and it arrived in an era when many automobiles were not equal to it. Early Model T Fords had gravity-fed fuel systems, no fuel pump at all, which meant that on the steepest pitches the gasoline could not flow uphill to the engine. The solution was to turn the car around and drive the grade in reverse, backing up a mountain highway with a canyon on one side, and enough people did this that it became ordinary. Drivers who could not face the road at all paid locals to take the wheel and pilot their cars over the summit for them. Others hired teams of horses to drag their automobiles up the grade, and wreckers stationed themselves along the climb like fishermen working a reliable hole, hauling out the stalled, the boiled over, and the wrecked at a tidy profit. In the 1930s, this same pavement carried the Dust Bowl migration. Families out of Oklahoma with everything they owned roped to their trucks, crossing the worst grade of the journey within sight of the Colorado River and California on the far side. Steinbeck put this crossing in the Grapes of Wrath. The people who made it in overloaded trucks with mechanical brakes did not need a novelist to tell them what it was. And because every car in America had to stop here, an economy bloomed on the mountain. At the eastern foot of the grade sat Cool Springs Camp, built in 1926, a stone-pillared mobile station and cafe, the last chance to check your oil, your water, and your nerve before the climb. In the 1930s, a man named James Walker moved his family from Indiana to run it, and added 8 tourist cabins. Higher up was Ed's Camp, another gas stop scratched into the slope. Near the summit, by some accounts, you could buy ice cream at the top of the worst grade on Route 66, which is either charming or deranged depending on how your brakes were feeling. Then came Gold Road, a full mining town wrapped around the switchbacks, and finally Oatman itself, where the Derlin Hotel still stands, and where local legend insists Clark Gable and Carol Lombard spent their wedding night in 1939 after marrying in Kingman. The mines paid for all of it, until they didn't. In 1941, the federal government shut down gold mining as non-essential to the war effort, and the ore that had justified this road's existence stopped moving. The towns began to hollow, and in September 1950, with Route 66 now classified as critical to military defense traffic, the Arizona State Highway Department decided the mountain had been tolerated long enough. The first contract went out on September 15, 1950, for $262,152, roughly $2.7 million in today's money, to begin a new alignment through Yucca, on the level ground beside the railroad, the route the railroad had chosen 60 years earlier. Crews built 45 miles of new highway in 2 years, the fastest major road project in Arizona history to that point. On September 17, 1952, the bypass opened, and Route 66 left the Black Mountains forever. Think about what that meant on the mountain. On September 16th, every car in America came past your door. On September 18th, none of them did. Cool Springs withered. Ed's Camp faded. Gold Road, already dying, finished the job. And Oatman, which had held thousands, dwindled toward abandonment. On September 2nd, 1955, the state formally handed the old road to Mojave County, the bureaucratic equivalent of a shrug. The highway that had carried the Okies and the gold and the entire westward traffic of a nation became County Route 10, a local road to a town that was emptying out. What saved Oatman, strangely, was what the miners left behind. When the last of them walked away, they turned their pack burros loose in the hills, and the burros did what the people could not. They stayed. Their descendants wander the streets of Oatman today, mugging tourists for alfalfa pellets, a feral workforce that outlasted the industry that imported it. And slowly the road's very obsolescence became its value. Route 66 nostalgia grew, and this bypass stretch, precisely because no interstate ever touched it, survived as one of the longest and best-preserved segments of the original highway anywhere, now a federally designated backcountry byway. Cool Springs, which burned to its stone foundations in 1966, was rebuilt in 1991 for the movie Universal Soldier, and then the film crew blew it up, which must stand as one of the stranger fates available to a gas station. In 2001, a couple named Ned and Michelle Leukner bought the ruins and restored the station from old photographs, and it stands there now, selling souvenirs at the foot of the grade where the walkers once sold gasoline and courage. So here is the warning the title promised, and it is not folklore. The road is still what it was. The Bureau of Land Management, which oversees the byway, prohibits vehicles over 40 feet from crossing Sitgreaves Pass, because the hairpins physically cannot accommodate them. There are no services on the mountain, no drinking water, no gas between the river and Kingman's outskirts, and cell coverage comes and goes with the canyons. The pavement is narrow, the shoulders are mostly theoretical, the guardrails are occasional, and the burros stand in the road because the road, as far as they are concerned, belongs to them. People still misjudge it. Motorcycles still go down on the switchbacks. Rental RVs still meet each other on blind curves with nowhere to give. Drive it in daylight, drive it slowly. Check your brakes at the bottom, because the descent asks more of them than the climb ever will, and the grade does not grade on a curve. But drive it, because there is nowhere else like it left. Go east from the river in the morning, past Boundary Cone throwing its shadow across the desert, through Oatman before the tour buses, past the headframes of Gold Road, and up through the switchbacks to the pull-off at Sitgreaves Pass. Stand there a moment. Below you, the old road unspools down the mountain in loops, the same loops the Model Ts climbed backward, the same loops the Jode's real-life counterparts descended with their brakes smoking and California almost in sight. Far to the south, out of view, Interstate 40 carries the traffic now. Thousands of vehicles an hour on the level ground the railroad always knew was the answer. Nobody up here but you, the wind, and somewhere below, a burro standing in the middle of America's most famous highway, waiting, with the patience of the mountain itself, for traffic that stopped coming 70 years ago.